Thank you, Arjan. Yeah, so after this lecture, you will know which of your engineering skills you can keep, you can lose, and also, looking at our profession, why AI is not a disturbance to our profession and disruption to our profession, but it's a way to help us go back to what we've always been meaning to do. And I'll also give you a small learning path or way to go back to and learn like all these competences we need to stay relevant in this age of AI-driven software development. So this talk is about our profession and about individual development. And for me personally, I've been in this profession for 26 years now, and for me it's never been about writing code. And somewhere, in my opinion, in our profession, we took a turn where we headed into writing code mainly, but it's always been about what problems are you trying to solve and generating those artifacts. And these are the models we develop in our profession or should develop in our profession, and they're here to stay. And so for me, being in the profession a very long time and looking at people and spending a lot of time knowing very specific frameworks, whether it's Fast API, Django, or it's Python, .NET, Java, Spring, get in-depth in Kubernetes. It's very interesting. It's what the industry demanded of us. But for me, it always felt like it's the technical concern, and we need to solve the business problem. So for me, the age we're now moving into with AI, basically writing the code, feels like and we're now moving with our profession into the next step of professionalism of solving business problems. Just for my reference, who in the room studied computer science or software engineering? That's a lot of hands. Keep your hands up. Who's been moving from a different profession to the software and development industry by learning it yourself, by learning programming? Cool. I'd say we're at 80% of the whole room. Lower your hands, please. Who's been studying information system design? Whoa, that's one. Whoa. Okay, that wasn't my expectation, to be honest. I thought it would be a bit more. Because information design is informatica. It's what we've been meant to do. It's building information systems, building the systems that support society, build business in handling information. And somewhere also in academia, we took a turn where we started focusing on language design. Spent most of the time in operating systems, in platforms, in frameworks. And for me personally, I studied it in the 90s. My first lectures I got were about read a paper about a business and figure out which data is in it. And how does the data flow? And what are the interactions with the users? And what decisions do they make? And nowadays, when I look at a computer science education, it's about .NET. Or even, in my opinion, worse, it's about low-code frameworks. It's about Mendix. But that's not what we're doing, right? We're not programming all day. That's not what we should do. We should solve real business problems. So my pledge is, and if you only remember one thing from this talk, then this should be this message. AI is not taking over our jobs. That's what everybody tries to believe. Let us believe, let society believe. Software engineering, it's outdated. Developers, they're outdated. We can just write code. Every product manager can write his own product. Just prompt, vibe code. Awesome, it's all gonna work. Everybody is a developer, and we're not in business anymore, right? That's what they try to believe. My opinion is that alibi is gone. We have to move to the hard work from our profession. We need to know about domains. We need to know about the business. So my question to you guys is, if you're in a meeting, who's ever asked the question, which business problem am I trying to solve here? Ah, cool. And for the more junior people, maybe, or lesser experienced people who had like asked the question, oh, what's the business problem I'm trying to solve? Ah, just fix the ticket, man. Ever had that remark? Oh, well, I expected more hands because that's my experience, especially in bigger enterprises. There's a backlog. Pick the top ticket. Don't ask questions. Just do it. So that's the wrong question, in my opinion. So my talk is not about us developers being replaced by AI. My talk is not about cloud code. It's not about Copilot. It's not about how do I use tool X, Y, or Z. It's a thesis. And my thesis is in the 80s, and I was born early 80s, but I studied in the 90s. We were heading as a group, as an industry, into the right direction. But for economic reasons, we took a detour. And that detour looks like this. We started with information systems. We had Jordan, we had Martins, and they were talking about data diagrams. They were talking about data flows. They were talking about functional components. They were talking about input, output, how we change the output, but all from a functional perspective. They were talking about how do I normalize data and make sure that I can reuse data, I can reason about data, all from the business perspective. That's what we used to do, and that's also where my study started. But then we got into like, hey, we see we can do a hell of a lot with computers, and even more during the internet era. Everybody wanted to be on the internet. But what do you need to write systems? You need to write code. What was the most time-consuming part? Writing code, delivering software. So what did we do as an industry? We started optimizing these things. Cloud came along. Why? Having a server in a server rack takes quite some time to push that server in the server rack. Oh, we can now spin up a server. Okay, deployments get easier, continuous delivery, testing. And certification was about, can I use .NET? Can I use Java? Do I know the API? That's not really what we should know, right? We should solve that business problem. So we went a bit sideways, in my opinion. And then in 2003, I've talked about, in previous talks, about domain-driven design. I don't know if people saw these talks, but in these talks I pledged like, we should focus already again on the business. But there was one big downside on DDD, and that's also what we in Stekz really encountered the last couple of years. It is quite using a lot of abstractions. It's using repositories, a domain model, a domain service, your API layer. Oh, why not do a SPA, which also has the data layer, has a representation layer, has the HTML layer, 8 layers of similar types of code, which as a human is really a mess to write. It felt like doing logistics, data logistics through your stack. But we noticed, hey, AI is good at generating code. What if it starts generating all this boilerplate code and we only have to focus on the domain? Then DDD is what we want, but not specifically the application architecture that everybody knows about that I was just explaining, but the strategy. What is the business? What does the business consist of? What are the processes of the business? How do they relate to each other? That's the first part of the book is about technicalities, architecture. The second part is about strategy. And that's the most important part of the book. How do you design a business in software? And with AI coming, I felt like I said, it's homecoming. We can now do all this stuff without the additional cost of all these layers, all these modules, etc., etc. You can just focus on the core of the system. So, brief example, very easy, just to get a bit of a grasp on DDD. Now you can look at the business. Everybody understands this, right? Nobody in the room doesn't understand what's in this diagram. Why do we communicate? We have an order DTO, we have an order repository, we have a custom order entity relationship, blah, 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 blah. This is what we want to talk about with the business. This is what a salesperson understands. This is what operations understand in the business. Everybody can talk in this language, in this model. And even as a developer, we don't need to translate it anymore. We can just use it in code. But this is very easy, of course. So in one of our projects, this is just 20% of, ooh, it's very bright. Wake up, everybody. Pizza, are you still awake? Yeah, nice. And this is one of the domain models of one of the systems we're building. But this is always a part of the discussion with the business stakeholders. We just run through this model and we drop scenarios on this model. Hey, how does it work in this case, and use this use case? And this complexity has always been there. But we got lost in code complexity. We got lost in deployment complexity. This is where we should have our energy, right? Everybody agrees. This is what we should solve. This is where our brain compute power should go. And the same goes for process models. And this is also another very simple model. But what we tend to do in the industry until now is we have to change this system so that we have an additional approval step when the discount is above 15, and then, oh yeah, that means that in this ERP system we need to change this business rule, and then this will happen. That's the other way around. Why? Because we don't have this insight. We always think of the implementation. When I often talk to a customer, IT of a customer, they're talking about the process, and then I ask, what's the process? Yeah, it's about reading the database, transforming the data, putting it in the other database, and copy it to an FTP server. That's not the process. This is the process. And we're thinking about handling these logistics instead of this. And when you want to change it, you want to change the model, and then the code will follow. And that's also what we learned developing with AI. And this is, of course, a more and even a simplified real-life use case of a process. And it's not about the notation, but what really helps is you have a collaborative effort in designing and developing these processes. So we have to talk to the business. How does your process work? Which step comes first? What happens when we change a step? But also, and that's where we come into play, what if we make one of these steps an agentic step? What does that mean? Now, a human doesn't do it anymore. An agent does it. What does that mean for the process? Do we want to control, check what the agent's been doing, or only in certain circumstances? And then we're talking with the business on the alignment between what's possible with technology and what does it mean it means for the process in the business. And the last part, and this is the pain point in my opinion in our profession, the business rules. During my career, I've been taking a lot of applications into maintenance. And we're always talking about DRY, don't repeat yourself, etc. But we have a front-end team, we have a back-end team, we have a business reporting team. And that's only 3. And these 3 teams all built, and this is a very simple business rule, these business rules into their system. I'm building a nice data lake so I can build a report. Oh, there's the raw data in here. Oh, but yeah, the status accepted of an order. What does it mean? It's not in the data. You have to read raw data. You have to come up with business rules. What does it mean to get into an accepted state of the order? So if you want to change it, who do you have to call to change these business rules in your business? 3, 5 teams just to get one business rule fixed. That's not going to work. That's also not going to work with AI. What is going to work is that you have one artifact. And also, this is a bit more, this is also an easy one, 5 business rules for one domain entity. But what you really want is you want this descriptive business rules, you want it as one artifact. And this artifact is what you use to develop your system. And it should have a version. You should know what changed between versions. Why? Because if you have an agent, it can pick up the differences from the business rule, and it can figure out what needs to be changed in your code base. So going back to agentic development, what we learned during our recent 2-3 years of working with AI-first projects is the vibe coding or the prompt engineering or the prompting, or it brings you only so far. What you really need is all this context. And if you build up this context of your business, whether it's a human developer or an agent, everybody knows what needs to be done. And everybody knows how to change the system. And agents can do that very, very efficiently. So where does it bring us in terms of our competence? Us as being developers, having I'd say, very, very good tool set in our and cognitive capabilities. So if I look at our profession, usually a developer has domain knowledge. Whether it's in the code, how does this system work, tells you how the business works. It's the other way around as I just said. That's something we should keep. So if you're now a code writer on a very specific part of your business, keep that domain knowledge. Try to abstract that domain knowledge, what you know about a business. I'll get back to that a bit later. Systems thinking. We are very good in finding patterns in code bases. But if you leverage it to the level of a business, you can also find very good patterns. We know how to write a class. We know how to make sure it only does one thing. We know how to write functions that you can understand, how you name them, how long they should be. That's all stuff we can translate to the level of the business. If you know two classes and how they interact, communicate, share data, you can transpose that to business processes. I have the finance domain, I have the ordering domain. Whose responsibility belongs to which domain? And business owners, they're very organic thinkers. They're fluid. Everything is tied together. What we can do, we can think in systems. So we can help them structurize and reason about businesses, making right decisions, writing the correct software. That's something we should really keep, especially the people who are in the profession for 10, 20, 30 years. You all can do this, but we need to move it to a different level of abstraction. Then communication. I'd argue that most people looking at our profession say, oh, these guys, they can't communicate. I would argue the other way around. It's the only thing we do is communicate. Why? We live in a world of abstractions. We don't work with tangible products. If I build a house and I want the roof to be steeper, I can point to the roof. I want it to be steeper. I want the tile replaced. And everybody knows what needs to be done. There's only one way, or a couple of ways. We live in a world of imagination. We need to continuously talk to other people to understand what's in their mind, what they're moving towards. If the CEO says, I want to move to new businesses, what does he mean? New products? New markets? Cheaper products? I don't know. I have to talk to him, and I have to translate that to my mental model and bring that into systems. But that's strong communication. If you're able to pick that from people's brain and understand what they're thinking and asking the right questions, and that's the why. Why do you want to do it? Why do you want me to build a portal? Because I want to move to new markets. I can make it digital. I don't have to work on paper. I can make it more efficient. Then you can start thinking along. And we are used to asking why. If there's an incident in one of our systems and we're on call in the middle of the night, it doesn't happen the second time, right? We're doing root cause analysis. Why did it happen? Is it the code? Is it the infrastructure? Whatever. Why did it happen? We know how to ask why questions within our profession. Let's bring that outside of our profession. So these are things we should really, really strengthen and keep. Then I said, coding is going to be cheap. It's going to cost you exactly one token. No, a couple of tokens. That's cents, right? Hours of work, which used to be tens of euros, hundreds of euros, are now just a couple of euros. So what do we need to develop then? How do we stay ahead of the game? One, being able to think in domain-driven design. That's what I really strongly believe. That's something everybody should develop. And then specifically, look up the book, buy the book, or get the DDD explained from InfoQ, which is a short abstract of the book, and look into the strategic patterns. Start learning them today. That's what you need to stay ahead of the game in our profession. BPM process modeling. You can read it. You can learn it at the academy, Stekz Academy. You can learn it on YouTube. But start learning processes, how people work together, how responsibilities between people work. How do you notate them? Start on that. These are the artifacts that we need to bring our profession forward. As I said, in communication, interviewing stakeholders. Don't be shy to talk to people. Start talking to your stakeholders. Understand what they need. And get acquainted with just talking to a CEO or a customer or whatever C-level or top manager. You need to talk to these people to understand what they want to build the correct system. Facilitate decision making. A lot of stuff is around making the right decision in the business. There are like a gazillion ways you can develop software, but you need to have the business make decisions. You need to have the business people brainstorm. Be the person that helps, facilitates all these talks so that they start moving forward, adopt technology, and you can really help them. Thanks. AI orchestration. What do I mean by AI orchestration? For the seniors in the room, we all started developing, writing code, right? And then we moved up like lead developer, hosting a team, becoming maybe an architect, overseeing 5 developers, 100 developers, 200 developers, educating juniors. When I look at what we're doing with AI and Cloud Code right now, having 7 agents in parallel, it's nothing else than steering a team, building a team, having a team doing the right thing. Get acquainted with how you build up and split up the work so multiple people can work on it, or agents can work on it. So think about organizing, orchestration, and specifically with AI. What we really should let go in our industry and as a person, and I'm only going to pick for time reasons the last one, don't identify yourself with technology. Berko already told about Pygrunn. Yeah, we're Python developers, right? Not anymore. We're the people making software for the business, for users, for society. And we're going to do a hell of a job. That's who we are from now on. We have to change our identity. Doesn't matter if it's fast API, doesn't matter if it's Python. We're the people who can help build a good business on software foundations. So we have to let go of that identity. So what does it mean for us day to day? Our profession will shift. From a technology specialist, a code writer, a developer, we will move either, you can say, to the left if you're a process thinker, if you're a layered thinker, higher in the abstraction layers, move towards the domain, towards the business layer. Because AI, like we had the programming language being an abstraction on assembly, being an abstraction on instructions and voltage on the CPU and memory, AI is the next level of abstraction, basically. So we need to move to that next level of abstraction. Okay, how can you head into that path? And for the people experienced, being there 30 years, the foundational part must feel like a warm bath. That's what you've been taught during your study. For the juniors, this is the time to start learning all these business concepts. So for the next month, do your BPMN course. Start reading the DDD book. If you're not doing, and I assume everybody is doing it, use AI tools daily to see the limits. How far can you push the AI and where does it get stuck? It can write perfect code. I can tell you it doesn't help you write a domain model. Completely messes it up because it requires logical reasoning and it cannot do it. Then start applying your new skills in the wild. Go into your business. Go talk to, I don't know, a process owner, a business owner, domain owner, however you're organized. Do it one day. Just sit in the business. Go sit next to them. See what they're doing all day. And then do some interviews with the people and then write down the specs and have the AI build the specs for you. See what happens and then ask feedback from these stakeholders. Just a minor 2-3 day prototype. See what happens. Instead of talking to them in, I have to change the order DTO because we want an additional field to the next data warehouse system. You just show them, hey, this is a system. What do you feel about it? Right? And then last step, jump into this new era. Take a whole business service, whichever scope you feel like suits you, and try to formalize the way you route down these specifications. Use a domain model, use a process model, use the business rules, build your whole AI tool set with guardrails, with the proper architecture, with tests, with whatever you want. Start building your tool set and start measuring by the goals you achieve, the clarity you achieve in your discussions instead of reading your lines of code. So our knowledge, whether it's React, Python, in your career you will learn 4 or 5 new technologies. But the domain expertise, finance, logistics, customer services, whatever you're in, that compounds. Each domain knowledge you gather makes you better. It's not even linear growth, it's exponential growth. The more domains you see, the better you can transpose it to other domains, the better you can support businesses, the better you can think about how does technology help the business. This is really where you should invest your time. And this is what really makes you the better engineer for the future. So that compounds. domain, I've been in 30, a bit of a lie, 26 years. But the thing that helps me today in understanding businesses is the gazillion businesses I've seen and how they operate. I can help businesses and business owners by seeing all the patterns in other businesses and applying them in their business. So, for today, I've told you my thesis that it's not disrupting. We're moving back to how our profession should have always been. Giving you a model you can use in your day-to-day work, domain model, processes, business rules. Giving you a path, how can you get there? Just break it up in 3 pieces and make it a logical step-by-step evolution. My question to you is, you don't have to write code anymore, which you've been doing for 30, 40 hours a week, depending on the type of company you're in. What's the next thing you're going to build? You're going to make for your business, for your customers, for society. Thank you for your time. It was my pleasure sharing my vision with you guys.